Tensions are rising in Puerto Rico.
It's not your beach. It's not your island.
This video was shot at a beach at Ocean Park, a wealthy sector of San Juan.
Mira lo que están haciendo.
A couple claiming to own beachfront property denied access to beachgoers. She said,
Wow, ¿le escucharon? ¿Le escucharon?
This video went viral, and the following day, dozens of people joined to throw a beach party in front of their mansion. Similar protests erupted in other places on the island. This was part of something much larger. The island is in deep financial straits. 42% of the population lives with poverty. The median salary is $25,000, while the median listing for a home in San Juan is just under $900,000. Middle-class Puerto Ricans are priced off their island. To get out of this crisis, the government is turning the island into a tax haven. They offer mainland Americans to pay 0% tax on personal income, capital gains, interest, dividend, and crypto assets, while investing in a booming luxury tourism sector. But the question is whether an influx of millionaires will help keep the lights on for everyday Puerto Ricans, or if it will turn the island into Hawaii, a place that no longer serves the native population, a theme park for millionaires and billionaires, where native Hawaiians are outnumbered by tourists 30-1. This is whether Puerto Rico is becoming Hawaii with hindsight. Puerto Rico is living through a population swap. They are using tax incentives to attract rich mainland Americans to move to Puerto Rico. As a result, everything becomes more expensive and some longtime residents can no longer afford to live on the island. The middle class is exchanged for millionaires. Puerto Rico now ranks as the 5th most unequal place on Earth. Rich mainland Americans who are not paying taxes are living alongside longtime residents who are working for some of the lowest average wages in the United States and who are paying their taxes. Puerto Ricans are priced off their island, and some fear that it might end up like Hawaii. Let me explain. In the 1890s, the United States was emerging as a global power. They were competing with European empires for strategic territories and influence. Then, the US went to war with Spain. This was fought in the Caribbean, where Spain had Puerto Rico and Cuba as its last colonial possessions in the Americas, and in the Western Pacific, in Guam and the Philippines. This is where the strategic importance of Hawaii became apparent. These islands were used as a fueling station for ships traveling between the United States and the Western Pacific. In 1898, Spain lost the war. Cuba gained independence and Puerto Rico was ceded to the United States. They had a strategic interest in this location because it could serve as a military outpost to defend maritime traffic in the Caribbean. This became increasingly important with the construction of the Panama Canal underway. Hawaii and Puerto Rico were both annexed in part because the war with Spain showed that the United States had to become a stronger naval power. And these strategic outposts served that goal. Puerto Ricans initially welcomed a US takeover, hoping that it would lead to greater autonomy and economic opportunities. The US tried to Americanize the island. They tried to make English the official language, and they discouraged any form of cultural expression. But Puerto Ricans, during the 1930s in particular, developed a strong nationalist movement that opposed cultural assimilation into the United States. From now onwards, they were treated as a possession, not a partner. This meant, by extent, that the policy in Washington was not primarily directed to increase the well-being of Puerto Ricans, but instead, their policies historically served a specific self-interest. And that's the first clue to understanding Puerto Rico's population swap today. But before we continue, I quickly want to thank today's sponsor, CyberGhost VPN. You probably know by now that hackers and criminals are actively trying to steal your personal information on the internet. CyberGhost VPN keeps you protected. With one click, you're connected to a secure server and all your data is encrypted while you browse online. I personally recommend using CyberGhost VPN as much as you can, for your own safety, but also because you get to do a lot of fun things with it. You get to choose to which server you connect, and you get over 100 countries to choose from. This way, you can access content from more than 40 streaming platforms, including Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney+. If you sign up through my link in the description or in the pinned comment, you not only support my channel, you will also get a 84% discount and you will get 4 months for free. It doesn't get any cheaper than this. Click the link in the description. There was a strong desire in Puerto Rico to have more autonomy. In the 1950s, they were granted Commonwealth status, which in reality changed almost nothing. But they were becoming increasingly important. During the Cold War, Puerto Rico became an important asset to the United States. They served as an example to show the benefits of capitalism in Latin America. Local and federal policies made it attractive to big firms to set up shop in Puerto Rico. They offered tax breaks, helping Puerto Rico establish itself as the preferred manufacturing hub in Latin America. This transition from an agricultural to an industrial society greatly benefited local residents. And this is what the United States wanted to show to other countries. Join our team and your country will prosper. But just look at Hawaii to understand their real intentions. In the years following their annexation, the culture and language of native Hawaiians was banned or discouraged. And sacred places like Ka'aolawe in the Makua Valley were used as bomb testing sites. The US showed deep neglect for the native culture and people, until the islands were advertised for tourism. Spiritual practices like hula were now commodified to help paint a picture of Hawaii as the perfect holiday destination. Some have called this the prostitution of Hawaiian culture. When the Cold War ended, the well-being of Puerto Rico became less important in Washington. The tax incentives that gave the island a competitive edge was suddenly deemed too expensive. As tax breaks closes, some see dire consequences, this headline read. In the early 2000s, as these incentives were fully phased out, many businesses left Puerto Rico and there was a major loss of jobs. This set the stage for the current crisis. These are dark times for Puerto Rico. After countless of businesses were leaving the island, there followed years of bad decisions and bad luck.
Puerto Rico is about a week away from a complete financial collapse.
Puerto Rico was collecting tens of billions of dollars in debt, which they were unable to pay back. In 2017, they declared a form of bankruptcy. This was the largest bankruptcy in the history of the United States, and just a few months later, a hurricane devastated the island.
Hurricane Maria was the deadliest natural disaster for Americans in over a century.
Then came the worst earthquake in a century, to top it off with the pandemic. And again, another hurricane.
Hurricane Fiona is picking up strength as it moves through the Caribbean.
Over 1 million people in Puerto Rico are still without power after Hurricane Fiona devastated the island.
Bad decisions and bad luck keep the island from getting out of the crisis. For residents, this is incredibly frustrating. The energy grid is the stuff of nightmares. It is not uncommon for the electricity to go out.
A massive blackout hit Puerto Rico.
The entire island plunged into darkness.
These blackouts are happening with increasing frequency, and in 2024, they lasted on average for 24 hours at a time. This is particularly frustrating considering that energy prices are 41% higher in Puerto Rico than the average for the United States. These bills are paid for by Puerto Ricans who live on a salary that is almost half that of average Americans. And while 42% of Puerto Ricans live in poverty, there is widespread government corruption. And since 2006, many Puerto Ricans are moving to the mainland. There are now 2 times more Puerto Ricans on the mainland than on Puerto Rico.
In Puerto Rico, residents are leaving the island at a near record rate.
The majority who are leaving are young professionals. Over 700,000 working-age adults left the country in the past 15 years. This means that fewer people are paying taxes and the government is receiving less income. This also contributed to a rapid aging of the population. 13% of the population was older than 65 in 2010. This had risen to 21% in 2019, making Puerto Rico one of the fastest aging places in the world, resulting in higher expenses for their government. To get out of this seemingly endless cycle of misfortune, the US government took control. They passed the Puerto Rico Oversight, Management and Economic Stability Act, or PROMESA, which put the White House in charge of Puerto Rico's finances. This resulted in some much-needed action, but here's why many are critical. This board is exclusively made up by people who are appointed by the US president, so some argue that it undermines Puerto Rico's already weak self-rule. Their main focus is to pay off debt instead of promoting economic growth. Critics argue that its intention is to please creditors over the needs of Puerto Rico's residents. In a parallel development, Puerto Rico passed 2 acts to attract rich mainland Americans to move to Puerto Rico. Act 20 lowered corporate tax rates to 4%, and Act 22 slashed taxes on personal income, dividends, interest, and capital gains. These were later bundled into Act 60. And while simultaneously investing in a booming luxury tourism sector, this led to a transformation of the island. The underlying philosophy is that an influx of rich people, their businesses and tourists would become a driver for economic growth. But so far, most job growth has been seen in construction and leisure and hospitality. These offer comparatively low-paying jobs, as opposed to other sectors like information technology, which have actually seen a job loss. The pandemic accelerated gentrification, as more mainland Americans could now work from home and decided to move to Puerto Rico, as well as natural disasters. Older, more affordable homes are destroyed, and they have to be replaced by newly built, more expensive homes.
A year on, reconstruction is still continuing.
The island is becoming more expensive, and many feel that they're heading to a future where Puerto Rico is no longer for Puerto Ricans. This led to this moment.
Mira esto, mira lo que están haciendo este tipo de personas. Este tipo de personas que vienen aquí a la playa, Puerto Rico, by the way, una playa pública. Estoy montando cancha y me dicen que yo no puedo montar cancha aquí. Me dicen que yo no puedo montar cancha aquí porque ella vive aquí. Porque ella vive aquí, le estoy bloqueando, mira, que le estoy bloqueando la casa, la entrada de la casa, me dice. Y se sentó en el medio de la cancha, pues porque él quiere coger bolazos. Porque eso es por su seguridad. Eso es lo que están haciendo esta gente.
The irony to me is that it is very common to compare Hawaii to Puerto Rico. And Hawaii, in that case, often serves as an example of what Puerto Rico might become. But Hawaii is probably the most extreme example of gentrification in the world. You might associate Hawaii with affluence, with paradise, and with wealth in general. But the reality for many native Hawaiians is very ugly and cruel. If you want me to make a separate video about this, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to click on the link in the description to get a special discount that CyberGhost VPN is granting to our subscribers. This VPN protects your data while you browse, and it gives you full access to all blocked content on the internet. It is totally risk-free, so check it out. Link in the description.